I'm Ashton Addison from BlockWest Capital for InvestmentPitch Media and the Crypto Coin Show. And today on Blockchain Interviews with Alexander Filatov, the co-founder and CEO of Ton Labs. Alexander, welcome to the show, and thanks so much for taking the time to come on today.
Thank you for having me, Ashton. It's a pleasure.
Likewise, I would love to kick off our discussion by hearing a little bit about your background in finance and blockchain and how that led to you co-founding Ton Labs.
Sure. Well, my career splits in three phases. I was with one of the multinational corporations for 9 years. I was running a few large industrial companies in my second life, in Europe. And 2015, I kind of got into the Silicon Valley and did a little bit of Stanford and Singularity University, and got completely carried away with what's called exponential technologies. And blockchain was on top of the list. It was not yet the most obvious one back in 2015, but I kind of put it high on my priority list. Co-founded a fund called Industry 4.0 to invest into those exponential technologies. And then in 2017, I completely focused on blockchain and on the Ton project specifically.
That's great. And yeah, and even since then, it's exploded even more exponentially. And with that, you and your team created Ton Labs, and it's a very interesting project. I would love to hear, just an overview of, how you came to starting Ton and just more about what is Ton Labs.
Sure, absolutely. The story of the project is that the project was conceived and originally developed by the Telegram team, the team which is behind the Telegram Messenger, brothers Pavel and Nikolai Durov, who've built a quite as an understatement, an extremely successful messaging platform. And of course, they had an idea to develop their success and develop a backend, which is the Open Network project that would be integrated into Telegram Messenger. And the currently 650 million users, back then it was a little bit less, would enjoy direct access to the blockchain platform, to the cryptocurrency, etc., etc. And it will be some sort of new evolution of the platform. As at that time, we co-founded Ton Labs with a mission to complement that effort and develop operating system on top of the blockchain. Because if you think of the blockchain, it's kind of decentralized computations, like decentralized microprocessor. And like for real adoption, you also need operating system on top of that. Kind of think of Linux in the blockchain space.
Yeah.
With developer tools, with a whole bunch of helpful bindings, parsing databases, etc., etc. And that's what and the idea was that Telegram would introduce Ton, and we would simultaneously introduce Ton OS, written on the same code base, inspired by the code base, but making contribution into the developer and end user adoption as well. And that's what we've done, unfortunately, on parallel again to Telegram development. Unfortunately, Telegram they raised $1.7 billion that got a lot of attention by SEC, and they lost the court and had to disengage from the project. At that time, there was already a large community of developers in the ecosystem, about 1,000 developers. And our team was basically the most prominent one back then. And given that we knew the blockchain protocol intimately well, because we helped with debugging, we developed, more than 3 million lines of code on top of the Ton protocol, original protocol. And again, I don't want to go into technical details, but it's software development kits, bindings, compilers, and a lot of other stuff, all part of the vertical stack to work on top of Ton. So basically what we did is we teamed up with 22 other teams, picked up the open source code, which was open for everybody. And in May last year, we launched Ton. Of course, we had to make a few interjections into the business model. One important one is we went for ultimate decentralization and governance. Probably ultimate is an overstatement, but I would say serious decentralization of governance. And we can talk about this later on, just not to go away from the big picture now. The second one is we decided not to do token sale of any form or shape, just to be immune to potential regulatory risks and not take any risks, because we did not do any token offering at all. And I can zoom into the details on our tokenomics, and how we distribute tokens, and we came up with this, what I believe is very promising meritocratic token distribution model. We can talk about this later on. The third one, of course, we changed the brand name to Freeton. Free means kind of, there is this free software, which is an alternative to open source software. And free also symbolizes freedom. That is free governance, open for everybody to join in. So that's, the magic behind the word Freeton. And changing the name of Crystal, or the name of token to Ton Crystal from Gram, which was Telegram. So it's launched by decentralized community, which is now quite large. We have more folks joining the governance. Just had the 8 new teams last week. And of course, hundreds of teams out there as part of the broader governance. But again, we can talk about this later on. It's been a year and 4 months. We finalized what we just call the foundational year, where we proved that the technology is working. Technology is very powerful. Again, happy to talk about this. I think we delivered something which is kind of true internet scalable, true internet scale decentralized solution. And we're now moving into the growth phase, kind of focused on adoption, focusing on use cases, and of course, continuing to work on the governance as we want to evolve into what we call governance 2.0 governance model. That's kind of a short intro into the project. And Ton Labs basically became a core developer of the network. So we were basically focusing on the core infrastructure, upgrading the different elements of the vertical stack, everything from the protocol itself, because you need to stay at the cutting edge all the time, and all the way to the front ends. And again, can talk about our innovations on the front end as well.
Definitely all great information, Alexander. I'm excited to dive into those tokenomics and the DAOs after, but you mentioned there, about the development ecosystem, about adoption and use cases, and that's what I want to focus on right now. There's a lot of blockchain developers in the Ethereum ecosystem, and now so many coming in from traditional development looking for blockchain ecosystems to easily develop on. What are some of the ways that your community is continuing to grow and bring developers to work on Ton as opposed to any of the others, or on top of any of the other blockchains that there are to develop on, because there's so many different areas to start developing now?
Sure, absolutely. That's what I meant by Ton operating system. A large chunk of that is a set of developer tools. Kind of think of first of all, we have 2 compilers. One is for C and C++, which are quite popular languages. There'll be more coming up. We have a Solidity compiler, which is quite helpful for Ethereum-based developers. C++ and C is for more traditional folks, I guess. We have a very comprehensive software development kit, and we have a whole bunch of bindings. Kafka, GraphQL, which helps you to parse the blockchain. I just don't want to go into too many details, but it's basically a very comprehensive set of tools, which you can think of, like thinking about big picture. If you remember how Firebase helped to simplify development for mobile applications, 15 years ago. So think of Firebase-like experience, where you actually have to spend much less time on developing for the blockchain than it used to be before. It's more like, developing in traditional IT segments, where you have a lot of developer tools, which are simplifying your life. So that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. And it's all live, it's all launched. And we're seeing about 3,000 teams/people. It's difficult to distinguish in the ecosystem, active in the chats. We have, as part of the governance, I can talk about our system of contests that we have as opposed to grants. In every contest we do, even some complex ones like decentralized exchanges, we had 4 submissions. NFT marketplaces, we had 6, quality submissions. And even for serious stuff like ZKP, we always have competition among the developer teams, which indicates that they find the ecosystem quite robust to build on.
Oh, that's great to hear. And with the development ecosystem and using the dApps, is the Ton token required there, or what are the main functionalities of where the Ton ecosystem is integrated in with the token?
Sure, that's a great question. We have 5 billion of tokens, which are currently deployed to 3 multi-sig. Recall, there was no there was no initial token sales of any shape, which is important because you don't get the type of people who come for, to make quick money, which is sometimes happens in the other networks, as we all know. Let's not pretend. So in our case, you have to earn it. You cannot. There was no token sale. So people have to, in order to get, tokens, people have to do something for the ecosystem. And 10% of tokens are allocated specifically for developers, for developer adoption, which is 500 million tokens. And the large chunk of tokens is allocated for adoption. We call it, for partnerships, where, let's say, existing use cases in the blockchain that for some reason cannot make sense of some of the other networks, high transaction fees or not enough throughput or something else, would consider migrating to Freeton, or folks from the non-blockchain space would come and develop for the blockchain. And we would have tokens to cover integration costs if they're significant, as well as to power their particular use case with Freeton as a backend, or Ton Crystal as a token within the loyalty program. So the simple idea is like this. It's an open platform. Everybody can come and build something. Everybody can come and suggest the contests. And if it finds a critical mass of folks who are supporting this contest, it would be launched, and folks would be rewarded with Ton Crystal tokens as a result of contributing to the ecosystem. So it's like, think of Wikipedia. The magic of Wikipedia is we know the founders, of course, said, let's just challenge the world to build world's largest library of knowledge, digital library of knowledge. And we have it, we have the world's largest library of knowledge. In our case, it's like, how can we build the largest ecosystem, going obviously beyond the knowledge, going into the real use cases, going into the real adoption. But it's not for free. Those who contribute, we reward them with tokens in exchange for their contribution. And they would all become stakeholders and would be even more passionate contributors. And this is like, a snowball effect, which keeps, growing and growing, and essentially reaching network effects when it just becomes a global phenomenon. So that's the kind of thinking that we have for the token.
Yeah, I like that mindset, Alexander. And you were talking about, the decentralized nature of the network as well. Is part of the Ton token part of the governance, or maybe you can just talk about the governance of the platform and how that works?
Sure. The network, again, the network was launched by 23 independent teams 1 year ago. And then what we started is, we always mean community. I mean, I'm doing 0.001,000% of what's happening, and maybe even less than that. And Anton Labs is doing less than 0.1% of what happens in the community. We stimulate the phenomenon called DAOs. We actually call it sub-governances, which is a group of passionate people, either united around a certain language/geography or a certain functional area, gets together and creates a mini Freeton, like a DAO which works on a specific subject or geography. So we now have 8 geographical /language sub-governances. We have Korean, Indian, Chinese, French, Japanese, Vietnamese, etc. Don't want to list them all. And we have 27 functional ones: NFT, DeFi, esports, developer experience, DevOps, etc. You name it. And so groups of people unite, get allocation, develop a roadmap, get allocation of tokens, and then they do essentially their own thing, in their specific domain. And that's how we can simultaneously grow all different aspects of functional areas and then also geographies. An important thing is what differentiates us from the other networks is typically folks do grants, which is obviously a quick and easy thing. I know Ashton is great in DeFi, so why don't I give him a grant to develop a new generation DEX for Freeton? Easy, quick, but what you don't get is you don't get competition. And typically when folks get grants, they kind of tend to relax a little bit. So in our case, it's contests always. And the beauty of the contest is that you have multiple teams competing. Typically, it's a short deadline. And what you get is you get a diversity of solutions. So for example, in NFT, as I mentioned, we got like 15 submissions. and 6 are quality submissions. And all 6 took a different, stance on what the future of NFTs. Some focused more on, programmability of the smart contracts, what we call true NFT. We can talk about that if time allows. Some focused more on, gaming dynamics. So we have competing solutions which can, have higher chances of adoption. There are downsides. It takes a little bit longer. You spend more tokens versus the grant, but again, I explained the beauties. And that's an important element of what we do is during the contest. And all of that together is what I described is part of what we call meritocratic token distribution model, which rewards people proportionally to their contribution. We're about to release the final version of the white paper. It's actually coming, I think, like Thursday, latest Friday, and this week. And it's a quite comprehensive 50-page, document, which describes all the governance innovations that we've done, as well as the technical innovations. And I know if you want to spend just a couple of minutes on the technical innovation, because that's quite significant as well.
Definitely, yeah. I was going to ask Alexander, with these innovations, what is some of the major next steps for Ton Labs? Obviously the community is playing a huge part, but like on the core protocol, are there more things that developers and users should expect in the near future?
Sure. Let me spend a couple of minutes on that one. So the largest thing that that the Telegram team kind of invented, and then we brought to full production and to fully functional protocol, is scalability. It's what they called in their white paper and in their documents dynamic sharding. We call it multi-threading, which is a more precise definition, token computer language. And what it basically means is that the network scales when there comes a load of parallel execution of smart contracts, not just simple transactions, but there can be very complex smart contracts as blockchain starts getting adoption. And that's typically what folks don't talk about. Typically, when we talk about scalability, we talk transactions, and the numbers are typically achieved in one single data center, i.e., it's not really decentralized on a decentralized internet-based network. So what we have is a network that splits under the load, and we can have a significant number of work chains, to support that to significant scalability. What we achieved last week in real life internet-based tests on a decentralized network of 200 developers is speeds of about 50,000 transactions. And again, we're talking execution of smart contracts in parallel. Folks who are technical will understand that this is a significant milestone. And then again, it was only on a limited number of validators and shards. So architecturally, it's linear scalable. It means that by adding more validators, we can go to 500,000 transactions, million transactions, and we think tens of millions of transactions if needed. What it means that it's kind of a proven internet scale network, which can handle, you can put Twitter in there if needed. You can put, Reddit in there if needed. You can put a lot of, fintech solutions if needed. Which is not, the reality of today. It's just coming, but it's what we believe it's the first architecture. It's the only working architecture for ultimate scalability. So that's the most important innovation. There are a couple of other ones, like we came with this concept of end-to-end decentralization and delivered a solution which we call dbots, which allows you to open decentralized applications straight from the browser, from the front end, with no web in between, which is quite significant. That's something that Web3 folks still have to come up with, because there's always web somewhere in there, and we have functional, which is web free, and we're going to promote that concept of web free and maybe suggesting a DAO, that allows end-to-end decentralization. And there are many more. I would probably mention True NFT as well, because all of the NFTs that we see today on the market don't typically, except some, in some rare cases, don't have interface in media as part of the NFT. it means that media is sitting somewhere else with all the problems like vulnerability, that you don't actually own that media as part of the smart contract, as part of the NFT. So what we're also promoting globally now is this true NFT concept, where interface and media is also part of the NFT. And for that we have a special work chain storage, which is optimized to store significant pieces of media. I can continue, but I'll probably stop with those three most kind of significant innovations.
Definitely. That all sounds really great, Alexander. I'm looking forward to seeing that in Ton Labs. And yeah, perfect timing. We don't have a lot of time left. So for the viewers, users, developers, and any other people that are interested in the ecosystem in following along and becoming a part of Ton Labs, what's the best way for them to learn more?
Sure. Well, Ton Labs IO is the website of us as a core developer, and again, we are focused on the core infrastructure. And then freeton.org is a large community site, which it's like a catalog which would send you to the forum, to developer resources, etc. So freeton.org is a place to go.
Sounds great, Alexander. I will leave those links as well in the description box below. All the best to everyone in the community at Ton moving forward, and let's follow up in the near future.
Thank you so much, Ashton. It was a real pleasure.